Here is a General Electric branded corded speakerphone with 12 memories. This is a Thompson product from Thompson Consumer Electronics Incorporated, and it is the model number 2-9300A. Telephone made in Malaysia. I don't know if these have a date code or not. Maybe perhaps somebody can decode the date from the serial number. But this is a huge childhood telephone to me, because this was in my grandparents' kitchen pretty early on in my lifetime. I want to say maybe late 90s, early 2000s at very most. This was in the kitchen for a short period of time, at least that I remember. It could have been there for years earlier. It could have been there for years earlier. But there was that telephone, and that telephone got replaced with this telephone. And I'm not really sure why this was replaced. The speakerphone does not work properly. I don't think so that it ever did. I'm not sure if it was replaced because of that or because caller ID was desired. This was a terrible telephone, and this was used for a very short period of time. And then it was replaced with this telephone. And this telephone, I remember being in the kitchen for quite some time. This was in the kitchen for the majority of the 2000s, maybe even into the early 2010s. And I have vivid memories of this of this telephone, my grandmother talking on this telephone and it being in the kitchen. And I was just laughing because I remembered something funny about this phone. So this also was not the greatest telephone and developed issues that really should not have been issues, but we'll get into that later. So these are all telephones that were in my grandparents' kitchen, and these are all the original models too. These are not separate ones I've found later. These are the actual instance. So, but this video we're going to talk about this telephone. I mentioned this telephone recently in that video of the General Electric speakerphone, which I want to just take a brief moment here to revisit, because somebody mentioned to me that the numerics on the base were incorrect, and that does in fact appear to be the case. That is ridiculous, and that's going to be a video of its own, because that is so absurd. But that telephone is the one that reminded me of this telephone. And you can see there's those same buttons that were on the other handset there. Now, I had mentioned in that other video about these the lights up here on the top. I thought I recall there being two lights on the side, but that's wrong. There's just one light on the top, and then I guess those two things on the side would have been for wall mounting, which it was wall mounted to hang up like that. I do remember this phone quite a bit. I remember the hook switch, I remember the buttons. This was there for a couple years that I can recall, I think. Now, some people had theorized something, because I mentioned in the cordless phone video that this telephone is kind of unusual in the sense that it utilizes RJ11 jacks on the handset to the base. And I think somebody had theorized that it used the line power to power the lights or something like that, which it does, but it does not use two additional pins. It's just, I guess it goes right into the wall, because the ringer is also, I think, on here. I don't see where it would come out, but it's got the ringer switch on here, so it probably is there. That's the microphone for the speaker. I mean, that's the that's the microphone for the speaker. That is a stupid thing to say, and it's not even true. That's the speaker for the speakerphone, not the ringer, as far as I know it. So, in theory, I believe we can just plug this right in here, and it works. It's got the light on there. So I guess this is kind of like a trimline phone, in the sense that the base is just like a pass-through. And I just remembered this back in the day. This was a problem too. The phone cord is extremely difficult to detach from here because the clip sits below the surface of the telephone. Now there's a coil cord for this, which I have, but I'm just not sure where it is right now. All the telephone equipment is in such a disarray. That's one of the projects for the winter, is to go through and clean all that up so I can find things. But you can simply use a regular line cord from the base to the handset. And I remember one of the things I used to do to drive my grandmother nuts was I would take the coil cord off and I would put a line cord on it like this instead. And it is working. So the speakerphone, are we on the... Okay, good. Make sure we're not on the main line here. The speakerphone is just exceptionally quiet. Now, quite possibly, it's just a bad speaker. I don't know. Maybe we'll try to repair that someday if I can get a comparable speaker. Let's begin by calling this telephone. I haven't heard this ring in a long time. Well, the ringer has definitely seen better days. Sounds like it's full of rocks. Yeah, the ringer is definitely inside the handset. I can feel it. Maybe it's just loose. It sounds better now. Yeah, it might just be loose. So it does still ring properly, for the most part. Let's go to the outside line here. Let's see if we can make some testing calls. I have to grab another telephone that has some numbers stored in it. This is the testing number that we're going to be using for now until something gets better with the Farmer Jones code line or the weather phone around here gets fixed. I'm going to call M&T Bank one of these days when I'm available during the working hours and see if I can get somebody over there that's aware of the equipment. But for now, this is pretty good. Does this have volume on it? I don't think so.
Current temperature, 64 degrees.
School attendance is a key indicator to higher graduation rates. Join your United Way in supporting school every day for a stronger Lehigh Valley. Your evening outlook is brought to you by United Way. Hope you had a great Tuesday enjoying this great early September weather. I'm WFMZ meteorologist Dan Skeldon. If you like your Tuesday, you're going to like your...
This is actually a really good testing number because the quality of the recording is good and it's a real person's voice as opposed to a computerized voice. But I still would like the weather phone back because this forecast is not super accurate for where I am. It sounds fine with the incoming audio. I don't recall there ever being an issue with the incoming audio or the outgoing audio. The only issue I recall was with the speakerphone. So now I'll call that number again using the redial. And we'll put it on speakerphone. Button's a little scratchy. The only reason why I think we might have a bigger problem here is because, as you saw, that indicator light there was really starting to dim out when a high point of modulation was coming across the speaker. I'm not sure, perhaps the speaker is consuming extra power because it's failing, or because there's something wrong with the amplification circuitry within the phone. I suppose the easiest way to do that, to find that out, is to just replace the speaker. So now I'm going to go ahead and call the testing phone, and I'm curious to see how the pickup on the speakerphone is. If the pickup on the speakerphone is trash, then there's a good chance that the speakerphone, the whole speakerphone itself, is screwed up. If the pickup is fine, then it's likely just the speaker. Is it possible to... No, it's not possible to use both at the same time. This telephone bears the General Electric brand name, and I cannot see the Harvard sentences because there's another junky telephone that my grandparents used in the kitchen on top of the Harvard sentences. It's got a lot of wind noise from my snout. We're gonna go to list 6 today. The frosty air passed through the coat, and that is actually fitting for today. The temperature this morning was only 47 degrees, and the temperature right now is only 58 degrees. The crooked maze failed to fool the mouse. Adding fast leads to wrong sums. The show was a flop from the very start. A saw is a tool used for making boards. The wagon moved on well-oiled wheels. March the soldiers past the next hill. A cup of sugar makes sweet fudge. Place a rose bush near the porch steps so you get pricked if you fall. Both their lives... What? No. Both lost their lives in the raging storm. Goodbye. Ah!
7 new messages and 6 old messages. Message 1. This telephone bears the General Electric brand name, and I cannot see the Harvard sentences because there's another junky telephone that my grandparents used in the kitchen on top of the Harvard sentences. It's got a lot of wind noise from my snout. We're gonna go to list 6 today. The frosty air passed through the coat, and that is actually fitting for today. The temperature this morning was only 47 degrees, and the temperature right now is only 58 degrees. The crooked maze failed to
used for making boards. The wagon moved on well-oiled wheels. March the soldiers past the next hill. A cup of sugar makes sweet fudge. Place a rose bush near the porch steps so you get pricked if you fall. Both their lives... What? No. Both lost their lives in the raging storm. Goodbye.
Message 2. Message 3.
Did you put a stupid line cord on the telephone again?
Message 4.
Can you please replace the cord on the telephone in the kitchen with a regular curly cord? This one keeps tangling up very quickly and it's getting all over the floor because it's too long.
Message 5.
Hello, this is Bill from Frank's Electrical. I'm calling regarding your work order request to have the electrical panel replaced because it is covered in stinky skunk juice. The quote for replacement is $4,768. You can call me at 555-SKUNKS.
Message 6.
On more serious matters, we're going to go ahead and put the phone on speakerphone now and see if it works at all. Okay, it's on speakerphone now. I'm speaking directly into the microphone right above it. I hear a lot of static coming out of the speaker. I think that the button just needs to be deoxidized.
Message 7.
Okay, it's still on speaker. Speaking about 3 away from. Now I'm about 50. Now I'm speaking to the phone. And normally I would say that it's about double this distance. Keep in mind that this is just a basic line phone and line.
End of messages.
The speakerphone absolutely stinks, and it's kind of about what I expected in terms of pickup. Even though it was terrible, I actually think it's working the way it just works. I don't say it's working properly because it's obviously not proper, but I think that's working as well as it ever would. There appears to be some kind of gate that's designed improperly that doesn't let it pick up the audio continuously, but when it's picking up the audio, for a line-powered speakerphone, it's kind of about what I would expect. So I think there's a very high likelihood that it just needs a new speaker, and it might be fine after that. This was made in Malaysia, so even though it bears the General Electric name, which from my experience does not typically indicate quality when it comes to cordless phones, especially from this era, it might be a halfway decent product. I wish it was in better condition. It's got a lot of wear on it. I think that this was used for quite some time. And then of course this was one of the telephones I would play with when I would go over there when I was younger. And so it was like a plastic crate that my grandfather had of old phones, and it was thrown in and out of that crate who knows how many times. I'm surprised this stuff is even in as good a condition as it is. All these phones that came from their house withstood that kind of abuse for a while. But so that's that. A General Electric corded speakerphone with the line cord on the handset. Definitely a very nostalgic phone to me. I suppose the fact that the speakerphone doesn't work doesn't really matter, because in my use case, I doubt that I'd ever used it anyways.